All right, so we're just showing some of the moves and some of the trends. Up 8 out of the last 9 weeks. Big bounce off the April lows, very similar to the S&P, up about 20% over that time. A lot of people, like you're one of these people that talk about the valuation of small caps. They traded at a discount about 16 times forward earnings compared to the S&P at about 21 times. At what point do we stop talking about the discount and start saying, maybe this is a value trap?
I don't think it's a value trap. What I think it's been has been a complete, sum of all fears for everything. The economy, tariffs, everything that you worry about have really found a home in small caps. And I think that as you've seen investors put their money elsewhere, it's been much harder for the overall asset class to break out. We're starting to see signs that we are much closer to that. Money's starting to flow back in trickles, but a little bit better than before. And the technicians are starting to call for a little bit more of a sustained move from here.
All right. We're talking a lot about agentic AI. In fact, we're going to talk about that probably with Robert Smith coming up. We've heard some people come on our show and say agentic AI is going to transform small caps. It's going to make them more competitive with a lot of their larger rivals. Is there one sector in small caps where you see that potentially playing out in the near term?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of companies that need to use agentic to kind of make sure that they can get their business into their customers. And if you look at some of the stuff in the FinTech world, some of the companies that work in the banks, Alchemy Technologies is one we own in our ETF that uses agentic AI to make sure that their software is being used effectively for the things in the banking world that needs to happen.
All right, let's get to some of your picks. You got some interesting ones. Now, the ones that make me kind of scratch my head are the consumer-facing small caps, things like Ollie's Bargain Bin and also Shake Shack. Obviously, Shake Shack's not super expensive. Neither is Ollie's Bargain Bin. In the name, it's not very expensive. But if we see a weakening consumer, aren't you concerned that customers and consumers are going to go back to things that they just know a little bit better and also can buy at scale? Why would you go to Ollie's Bargain Bin when you can go to Walmart and get a deal? Why go to Shake Shack when McDonald's has the $5 value meal?
Well, I think that, when you look at Ollie's and you showed Five Below, which had a good quarter as well last night, you're starting to see some of the trends accelerate. They offer something to their customers that you probably can't get at Walmart. And I think that in many cases, they're closer to the customer than that Walmart superstar. When it comes to Shake Shack, with menu innovation, with loyalty, I think you are having a much more competitive burger environment than McDonald's. Now, McDonald's can out-innovate and they can out-advertise, but I think Shake Shack has that, that loyalty edge with customers who really feel like they have a great experience when they go there.
All right, one other one you had on your list here is Kratos Defense and Security Solutions. We were just talking about the ITA hitting an all-time high. Kratos is in the defense space. But I'm just curious, we've had another smaller cap company, Parsons, on our show in the defense space as well. As we see defense spending ramping up over in Europe, potentially pulling back here in the U.S. as we look to cut the budget, how does that work for these small cap companies?
I think that's why you need to really dig into some of these small caps, because you can go into the areas where there is spending increase. And Kratos is on the information side, on the drone side, where you're starting to see some of that money being spent, and the dollars can go a lot further, as we've seen. Seen what's going on in Ukraine. Dollars spent in drones can go a lot faster than when you're spending on the F-35.